What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Game Awards 2022. The announcements of the Game of the Year nominees will be going down this Monday. That is November 14th at 9 a.m. PT / 12 p.m. ET. And I wanted to cover what my predictions will be for Game of the Year. There's going to be 6 different titles, it seems like, this year. And this year's interesting because there wasn't as many high rated games as the 2 games that are the front runners, but I think everybody's trying to think what are the other 4 games that are going to be part of the Game of the Year nominees. But pretty much there's 2 games that we know good and well that are the super front runners, head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to the voters here. Now in this video, we're not only going to be going over my predictions, but we're also going to be breaking down kind of how the Game Awards 2022 is going to go down, some of the logic behind it, some of the past winners, and things that kind of affect what happens here. Because I think that with Keeley's shows, you can expect a few different things. It kind of always goes according to plan based off of certain factors out there. So we're going to discuss all of that. Now let's go ahead and get right into it here, guys. I'm going to start from the bottom, then work my way to the top. Now, starting off, there's always that smaller or indie game representation at the Game Awards. We've pretty much have it almost every single year. So I'm going to pick Shredder's Revenge. However, I do have some alternates that could come into play here, and that is Stray. That's that cat game on the PlayStation. And then also Neon White, which was a PC and Switch release. That was a really cool first-person speed running, action shooting type of game. Really dope. Neon White actually has the highest review score out of all of these, but Shredder's Revenge had so much hype and fanfare behind it, and also sold really well too. But then Stray also had its own little moment in the middle of the year as well, middle-ish end of the year. So I think that all 3 of these are good candidates, but I'm gonna go with Shredder's Revenge. Now next up is the somewhat smaller game, but still known. So Plague's Tale is my pick. I think that the graphics and the story are really going to resonate with a lot of the voters out there that don't really play a lot of games, but pretty much know what they're going to vote for with the top of the top, but they're just looking at what else to pick. And I think that Plague's Tale, just because the graphics are awesome and just because it has a great story, they're going to go ahead and pick up Plague's Tale there. However, I do have some alternates for this kind of slot as well, and that is Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and it's into Bayonetta 3. Now, Bayonetta 3, I think might not, because I think that a lot of the check marks and people that were instantly this whole boycott Bayonetta situation and didn't let things play out, a lot of them will hold that against Bayonetta in the voting process. So a lot of these reviewers and a lot of these people for these websites will still hold it against the game. So Bayonetta maybe not, even though it's a high rated game. It's 87, it was 89 at launch. It's still a super high rated game. It's actually higher rated than Kirby and also Plague's Tale, but I think that it's probably going to get the short end of the stick based off of all that and the fact that it's Bayonetta. So I think Plague's Tale's the pick, but you never know. Kirby and the Forgotten Land could get in there as well. Now, next up, these are kind of all my shoe-in bets to be there, so I don't have any alternates or anything like that. I think that these 4 games are going to be there no matter what. And we're going to start off first with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think that this game is a shoe-in bet to be one of the top 4 here when it comes to what I think. And I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3, one of the higher rated Monolith Soft games. I think there's only one other game that's higher rated, and that's the original Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, but that was pre-Game Awards. Now, post-Game Awards, this is easily the highest rated game that Monolith Soft has ever done. It's also released at a time period that's really good for the Game Awards because the voting takes place at the end of the year, but this came out at the middle. It's still easily one of the highest rated games, one of the highest rated JRPGs. It actually rated higher than games like Final Fantasy VII Remake's original release on the PlayStation 4 and many other RPGs that were nominated for RPG of the Year. So Xenoblade Chronicles has a very good chance chance to actually be in the game of the year conversation here. So I'm going to say Xenoblade Chronicles 3 makes it. That 89 score, it's not the be-all end-all. Metacritic isn't everything with this, guys, but it does play a factor into it a bit when they're looking down the list of what games and what's highly rated. And I feel that this could happen with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which would be a big turnaround from what we've gotten before. The last time that anything from Xenoblade was nominated was Xenoblade Chronicles X, so it's been quite some time, and that was back in 2016. So yeah, I think that it's time finally. Xenoblade Chronicles should be nominated for a number of things, in my opinion. RPG of the year for sure, also OST soundtrack of the year and game of the year. I feel that there's at least 3 nominations in line, but that game of the year nomination, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 deserves it, especially this year with the lineup of games that has been coming out, the score that it got. It deserves it. So I'm really hoping that Jeff Keighley and also the panel who's voting do not forget about this game. I mean, it is the fastest selling Monolith Soft game of all time. They sold over 1.72 million units, which made some headway. And I think Jeff Keighley even acknowledged this game one time on Twitter when fans were kind of peppering him with that. And I think that the Xenoblade fans have been persistent when it comes to getting on Keighley. I'm really hoping Xenoblade Chronicles 3 might be my game of the year, but I'm just hoping that it gets in the nomination special here. I'm just hoping that it actually gets its publicity, because they haven't given any respect to Xenoblade Chronicles really at all. There's really been nothing, even when there's prime opportunity for it to do well, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the OST at least, or the music. Nothing from there. So we'll see if it happens here, but I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has enough clout, has enough mainstream support this time around with the journalists to actually get in. Now, next up is Horizon Forbidden West. This is also one of the best reviewed games of this year. I think that Horizon gets a lot more publicity this time around than before, just because back in 2017, when Horizon, the first game, came out, it really was up against some juggernauts. It was up against a lot of other games like Persona, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and just a bunch of other games that were just higher rated than it. I mean, that's really just what happened. It just got outrated by a lot of these games. I think Nier Automata came out that year too. So 2017 was a huge year for video games, and Horizon unfortunately just got the short end of the stick. Now this year is much more favorable, in my opinion, at least. It's much more favorable. So I think that Horizon Forbidden West gets in over a game like Gran Turismo, which had all sorts of issues with the monetization and everything. And Horizon Forbidden West is still a great game. It's still really good. Fans love the game. It's doing well. So I can absolutely see Horizon Forbidden West doing better than what Horizon Zero Dawn did back in 2017, and actually getting nominated and maybe even winning some of the other things that it might get nominated for as well. Now we get down to the nitty-gritty here, guys. These are the 2 games that really have the opportunity and chance to win, and that is God of War Ragnarok and also Elden Ring. And I will pick my winner after I talk about both of these games real quick. God of War Ragnarok is a game that takes the original base of what made God of War 2018 so good and just turns it up to 20 at each level. There is nothing that God of War Ragnarok doesn't do better than God of War 2018 for the most part from a gameplay standpoint. Now, you can argue about story and pacing and puzzles and other things, which I think that God of War Ragnarok definitely does better than God of War 2018, but you really can't argue too much about the combat. The combat is so refined. The skill tree and what they've done there is much better. The AI with Atreus and how he fights is better. Everything is just taken up. God of War Ragnarok is the perfect building upon sequel for God of War 2018 and what they were doing going forward, because essentially it was a reboot of the franchise. It's not like it plays super homage in terms of gameplay to the previous ones. Now there's odes and nods and stuff like that in Ragnarok to the previous games, but the gameplay is built off of what they built back in 2018 with God of War and the reboot of the series, and they've taken everything and just made it so much better. The fans all believe that, and it's resulted in that 94 score out there. So God of War Ragnarok is absolutely a front runner along with this next game that we're going to talk about, and that is of course Elden Ring. Now, when I preface this by saying God of War Ragnarok builds upon what they've already done, Elden Ring also does that as well, but what Elden Ring does is what God of War 2018 did all the way back then, that it takes the formula that they had and they completely reinvent it and completely change things to the point to where a lot of people who maybe didn't try out Souls games before tried out this one, right? Same thing happened with God of War 2018. A lot of people who didn't play God of War back then, all of a sudden now are into God of War. I think Elden Ring did the same thing for the Souls franchise. It was always popular. It was a multi-million selling franchise. I think Dark Souls 3 sold 10 million copies plus, but now they got it to the point to where it's a global phenomenon and everybody is buying the game, and it reviewed the best. I mean, you can't not factor that in. It reviewed higher than every single game this year. It's got like a 95, 96 rating, something like that. So with that type of rating, with the type of praise and the type of evolution that Elden Ring did to the Souls franchise, I think that Elden Ring is going to come away with the winner. Now, if I had to pick once again what I think is game of the year for me, that's going to be Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to me was the best game of the year, but that's just my own personal opinion. I'm going off of with this, what the reviewers and what the panel is going to pick. And I think that they're going to award Elden Ring for being a bigger evolution of the franchise than God of War Ragnarok is to God of War 2018, you know, like the last games there. So that's how I feel they're going to do it. However, God of War Ragnarok could bust in like the Kool-Aid man and say, nope, hold up here, Elden Ring. I'm reviewed a little bit lower, but I'm still better than what you're offering here. I think that Ragnarok and the reviewers have been going crazy over this game. People are finding out all sorts of cool tech with the combat and the extra stuff. I mean, there is a lot to kind of go through with God of War Ragnarok, but Elden Ring just took everything by storm. I think that Elden Ring was that game that when it came out, people didn't expect it to be quite as good in terms of reviewers. They didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was. They knew that it was going to be really good, but I don't think they thought that it was going to change their lives. Like some people said, Elden Ring, the greatest game that they've ever played, like in their life, is Elden Ring. That's what a lot of reviewers said. The 10 out of 10s just came flowing in. I mean, it's really, really, really hard for a game to review as well as Elden Ring did. Like, it's really hard. Like, it's almost never happens for the most part, right? It's very difficult. So to see those scores and to see all the reviews, I think that Elden Ring really comes down to what the journalists are going to pick. But it's a two-horse race at this point, guys. It's Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok. And I think that Elden Ring's going to win. But those are my picks for the 6 Game of the Year nominees. And I want to make sure that I say this too, guys. Like, this is just the Game of the Year for what they think. Now, we have a little bit of a say in it. Obviously, we can vote. There'll be the user's choice game of the year. There'll be lots of games. And honestly, don't take this as if it's the be-all, end-all for whatever you have to think. Just take it as a celebration of games. Games are going to get awarded. Some games are going to get screwed over. Everything isn't always going to go the way that you want it to go. But I commend Keely for trying to put on a show like this. I think that it gives us some type of standard or something to kind of look forward to. There's going to be new game reveals and new trailers and new types of stuff like that. And it's going to be a fun time whether the show sucks or not. A lot of time it's all about the advertising and the show ends up not being so good, but we still stream it. We still have fun. We still talk about the games. At the end of the day, it's still a community and it's still gaming and it's still fun. Whether you're thinking that the show sucks or not, I think it's still fun to hang out with the homies, hang out with the stream, and just talk about games, even if it's not very good. I've had a good time every single time that I stream the Game Awards, no matter if I like the show or not. Most of the time I don't like the show, but I've always had a good time hanging out with you guys, talking about games, arguing about them, whatever the case is, right? So I feel that this show is going to be just that. This is going to be a great show where we can talk, hang out, discuss the games, be angry, be not, whatever the case is. And at the end of the day, everyone is just happy to discuss games and happy to talk about games and happy that we have this opportunity to have something like this, to have a show, to have an event, and maybe look forward to something or maybe not, you know, when it comes down to it. But I know I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be live reacting. I'm going to be streaming it. It's going to be fun. I'm going to make it fun for you guys. We're going to have some giveaways and prizes and stuff. So I think that it's going to be a great show for what I'm doing overall right here on PlayerEssence, baby. So I think I'm going to help put on a great show. I'm going to help make it a bit more fun, cracking jokes and all that. So I'm looking forward to the Game Awards. Looking forward to the Game Awards. Looking forward to seeing the nominees here, the nominees special. And I'm almost positive there's going to be people upset, especially if Xenoblade Chronicles 3 doesn't make it. Ooh, boy. There's going to be a storm on Twitter, but we'll find out on Monday. So what do you guys think when it comes to the Game of the Year nominees? What are your 6 picks for Game of the Year? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.